see, I can see the difference.
We got it several meetings ago. You didn't get it.
Yes, you're not, okay.
No, it'll go down, but it won't hit the.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at a special call meeting. We're going to have our roll call, which I do see that we do have a quorum. The mayor is absent. So we're going to go to our invocation, and I'm going to ask the chief to do our prayer, please.
Sure. Oh, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Father, we thank you for the activities of those that are leaders of this city, Father. Pray for all the first responders, dear God. Pray for all those that are present. Father, we ask, oh Father, you continue to prosper our community, that it go forward, oh Father, in all that we do. Pray for those who want to be who couldn't be here, those that are absent, oh Father. Pray for anyone that is sick amongst us, dear God. Touch their hearts, oh Father, touch their minds, oh Father, and heal them, oh dear God. Father, we ask, oh Father, you preside over this meeting. Let everything be done for the will and good of all. Let your will be done. In Jesus' name, we all pray and say amen.
Amen. I'm going to ask Mr. Lowry to lead us in our pledges, please.
Basic flag, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Basic Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Chief Broussard and Ms. Lowry. Okay, we are at our public comments. And I do have one public comment, and this is Scott Lambert. Come forward, please.
Yes, I think the board or the city council has gotten the information on the Blue Group, which is a recycling company and a solar company. And they met with the city council and the EDCs probably during COVID because they were on Zoom. I've met with Scott and Robert on numerous occasions. Then me and Robert met with Fred, and Terry was there to try to get a city council workshop to try to bring 1,400 jobs to Cleveland. And basically, we've been trying to get, I've told Scott, told Robert, even told Fred, we need a city council workshop because they're looking for tax benefits or tax abatements on a $410 million facility that would bring, like I say, 1,400 jobs and probably a payroll of somewhere around over $75 million a year, which I don't know if y'all want it or not. It appears you don't, because I've asked for a city council workshop so we can get this thing done. I've been with the group the last 2 days in Brookshire, Texas, looking for buildings. 2 guys flew in on Monday from Turkey, 20-hour flight. They stayed 2 days. They flew out today. Robert asked me why I didn't bring them to Cleveland, because we've been trying since January to get a meeting with City Council. So if somebody could call and tell me you either want it or you don't. Simple as that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Okay, do we have any other public comments? Okay, if not,
Mayor Pro Tem, I know our rules, we don't have to address public speaking, but my question, may I speak on behalf?
I don't think that would be a good time. I think we need to just abide by our rules and regulations.
About what?
Our rules and regulations?
The law allows you only to provide factual information.
That's what
That's
I'm
all,
gonna do.
if it's asked. I don't know.
Okay, let's move on. I'll speak to Mr. Lambert later.
Thank you, Mr. Darrell. Now we are at our consent agendas. Don't have any?
May I ask a question? May I
In
ask a question?
reference to what, Mr.
Well,
Darrell?
in reference, usually after public comments, there's always a usually that thing where board members, council members can express their feelings or what they think.
Okay.
If you're going to comment about what the gentleman just spoke, it wasn't posted, so my advice is to not do that. You can comment on events you've attended, social gatherings, things like that are accepted from the Open Meetings Act.
Well, I'll bring it up after.
And if the council has anything they would like to report of some activities or events that have gone on, or anything from, do you have anything this time, you may do so.
No, I don't think.
Ms. Larry?
No, ma'am.
You shut me down.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, the consideration of possible actions on, okay, this is item 4, the resolution on the Rodeo Dairy Day Parade.
There should be a copy right in front of
A
you.
resolution of the City Council of the City of Cleveland, Texas, authorization and agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for the temporary closure of Houston Street, whereas the Cleveland Livestock Association sponsors an annual livestock show parade to be held on April the 8th, 2023. Whereas the event is popular with the citizens of Cleveland and serves a public purpose, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Cleveland, Texas, Section 1, that the city manager be and he is hereby authorized to execute an agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for the temporary closure of Houston Street between Peach Street and Travis Avenue on April the 8th, 2023 for the annual Dairy Day Parade. And that the city secretary be and she is hereby authorized to attest same and to affix the seal of the city thereto, pass and approve on this 16th day of March 2023. Mr. Boyd, it's time for Ms. Mayor, I'm Mayor McClay, Mayor Pro Tem, and Terry Blackwell, City Secretary.
We're just looking for approval for the resolution so that we can go ahead with the Dairy Day Parade.
And this is something that the city does every year and it's very fun to have. So do I get a motion?
I make a motion, we approve this resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Lowry, a second by Ms. McWaters. Any other discussions? Okay, all approved? One hand, please. And against? Motion passes. Okay, now we are at item number 5, which is discussion and action item. Excuse me, consideration of possible action regarding possible salary adjustments of city personnel, including dispatchers. So are we going to discuss this here now, or are we going to do this in the?
I've got a few comments on it tonight.
And just before we get started, just as a preface that to discuss salary ranges and generalities of positions and so on, that has to be discussed
And this is something that we have been discussing for a while, as far as salaries, for not only just the dispatchers, but employee salaries as well. And our city manager provided us with a spreadsheet with these salaries, current salaries, and ratings and measurements. So if he would like to go ahead and start explaining this.
If we can start off with that, okay. So if you'll look in your packet, we provided several documents, and the first thing that I want to show you is just kind of the combined market data 2023 grade worksheet, which shows you all the different grades that was provided to us from Gallagher when they did the count study for us back in January. And so the way that it works, when you look at it, the midpoint differential that says 10%, what that means is there's a 10% difference between like grade 1 and grade 2 at the midpoint. So as you go down, there's a 10% increase from grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, as you go down that grade. So that's your 10% on the midpoint, which if you remember, midpoint is what is considered the market. So when they did the market study, that's the midpoint for each of these grades. There's a 45% range between the minimal and the maximum of each grade. And then there's, of course, 19 grades, starting from grade 1 all the way up to grade 19. And then each of the employee classifications have been assigned a grade within this. And so as we go through the next spreadsheet, you will see where it says the grade that each of these positions have been identified to, and it correlates with this grade sheet. So this is, actually, the first year I want to just kind of explain what that 10 to 45% difference is on this grade sheet. And so on the big document that you have, it's got multicolors, lots of different lines. I want to explain on this one, kind of go through it, just to kind of make sure everybody understands all the information that's provided. There's a lot of information that we have here. So when you look at the first small box at the top of the page, you've got three options, option 1, option 2, and option 3 in that first column. If you remember, when Gallagher made their presentation, they presented 3 different options or proposals for consideration. Option 1 was to bring all the employees up to at least the minimum of their pay grade. So that would be one option, just to bring any employee that is below the minimum of the pay grade, to bring them up to that pay grade. Option 2 is to bring all the employees up to what's market, or the midpoint. So that would be another option. It's the most expensive option, but that would say we have identified that the market is that midpoint, and we want all of our employees to be at least at the market level, the midpoint level. That does create a lot of compression within our organization, but that is one option that they presented. And then the third option that they were kind of recommending, and really kind of presents the best case scenario and most, I guess, efficient, most fair amongst the employees and so forth. And that's where you consider the penetration range within the grade. And what it said was when they did the study back in 2021, when they created the grades, wherever that position was at within the pay grade, we would maintain that percentage so that they were within 25% of the pay grade, they would remain at 25% of the pay grade. If they were at 75% of the pay grade, they would remain at 75% of the pay grade. For example, it takes theoretically 7 to 10 years to get to the midpoint or the market. So if you're an employee that's only been here or within that position for 2 or 3 years, then you may be somewhere in that 25% range of the grade. If you've been here, let's say 15 years, then you're going to be higher up in that, closer to the maximum instead of the midpoint. And so that's kind of where that was taken into consideration back in 21. That's kind of keeping and maintaining that percentage would be what that option is. That's option 3, maintaining that level within your pay grade. And then as you work across the top, you see three different columns, an annual column, a remaining FY23, and a January. The furthest column to the right is the January. And so those were the numbers that were presented by Gallagher back in January. And so that's where the numbers fall for an annual cost that they presented. One of the things that we discovered as we started dissecting all the information was that they had provided all employees a 20/80 formula, 20/80 hours a year, which basically is 40 hours a week, a full-time employee, even for our part-time employees. So we went back and adjusted all the part-time employees to 1040 hours instead of the 20/80, making them a part-time employee, and that's where you get the white annual number. So that would be the annual cost of doing that implementation, whether it was option 1, 2, or 3, on an annual basis. Of course, that's one of the things that you've got to make sure and keep in mind, that that would be your cost. So if we do an adjustment mid-year, like in April, then you would still have to budget that full annual cost going forward. Because that's how much it's going to cost on each of those three plans. The middle column, the remaining fiscal year 23, that basically says if we were to implement this, the first paycheck in April, which is halfway through the year, this is what the cost would be at that point for each of those options. If you go down a little bit, you see the red, the yellow, and the blue striped rows. The red one is the number of employees below the minimum. There's 40 employees currently below the minimum of the pay grade. This is about a third of our employees. We've got 120 employees in our organization, and 40 of them are below the minimum of their pay grade. The yellow is those employees that are between the minimum and the midpoint, which is the market. So that's an additional 40 employees that are between the minimum and the midpoint of their pay grade. So that's 96 employees total of the 120, which is about 80% of our employees are below the market. And then the blue is those are the number of employees that when they did the study are already above the maximum. So those would remain above the maximum, they'd be grandfathered in, and that would be, there's 7 of those total that have already exceeded the maximum of their pay grades. And so that's kind of the top chart. When you move into the meat of the data, there's basically 12 different columns that you can look at. And so as we go down, the first column is your department. So that's each of the departments within our city. And that is in alphabetical order. The next is the job description of all the employees within those departments. The next column is their current pay per those positions. And so you can see that there's a huge difference. There's some that are small amounts and some of them are large. And so the way this works is if it's under $100 in that column, basically that means it's an hourly employee. If it's over $100, it means it's a salary employee. And so, like for the very first row is $14.19. So that's the hourly rate of that employee. If you go down 4 rows, you see a $21.15.39. That is a salary. And that's what that person gets every pay period, is that. Then when you look at column 4, what you're seeing is that total salary annually for that pay or that position. So that carries it out. Then column 5, that is the grade, the pay grade that correlates with that first spreadsheet that we looked at and talked about. That's the grade that each of these positions have been placed into. Then you move into the next 3 major columns, and it's option 1, option 2, and option 3. And so what you'll look at here is each of these have 2 columns with each of those bigger columns. The left column would be what it would require if we were to do that option. So option 1 would be to bring everybody to minimum. So when you're looking on the left side of that, if they make below minimum, the salary in there would be moved up to the minimum. If they are already making minimum or above, then they would continue to be paid their current salary. And so you can see on the right side of that column, the gray column, that the ones that have numbers in there is how much it would cost to adjust that on an annual basis to move that employee to the minimum. The ones that do not have a dollar amount there on the right side are the employees that are currently making minimum or above at this time. That same concept is carried over into the next, the pink column, which is to bring everybody to market or to the midpoint. Same thing applies. If they are below the minimum, below the midpoint or the market, then their salaries would be adjusted up to the midpoint. If they were already above the midpoint, then their salaries would remain the same as what they are today. And again, on the right side, you'll see that there's much fewer that actually have zeros in there that are already above, that are currently making above the midpoint. Option 3, you're going to see that everybody's salary gets adjusted because it goes back to that percentage within the pay grade, and you will see an adjustment in every single one of the employees on the right side to get them within that pay grade that was in there. The next 3 columns is your, basically goes back to your pay grades. So it correlates with the minimum, midpoint, and the maximum for each pay grade. So when you're going across, you can look at, if you don't want to refer to your other page, all that information is listed right there. And then finally, your last column is the column that shows the red and white, which is below the minimum. Those employees are currently below the minimum. The yellow, which are the employees that are between the minimum and the midpoint. And then you've got the blue, which are over the maximum, and then you've got the ones that are just left in green, and those are currently the employees that are basically between the midpoint and the maximum. So that's how this spreadsheet works out. And so one of the things that we are needing from the council as staff is we need some direction. Gallagher has presented their studies, they presented the 3 options. And so we need direction from council on how we want to proceed. Do we want to do something mid-year? Do we want to do something or wait until the budget year in October? We do know that we have, a third of our employees are currently under the minimum. And so that's one of the things that we've talked about, and one of the reasons why we went and got this, kind of brought this back to life, was because we are having some issues. We are constantly losing employees for higher paid positions. And this is, of course, the reason why you see. And so one of the options that has been presented is to at least get all the employees up to the minimum. And if you look at that, option, that would be about $57,000 for the remainder of the year. If that's something that you would want to implement, then that would be something that we could take back and staff could get together. We could work to try to figure out where do we find $57,000 in our budget. Because it's not budgeted. So we're going to have to find within our current budget that $57,000. If you want to do something different, we just need to know that direction so we can try to find that money. If we want to move forward with, for example, let's say our ultimate goal is to get to option 3, the blue, then we need to figure out what that is, and we can go back to work on that. Whether that's implementing it in April, it's implementing it in October, or it may be that, like Gallagher had mentioned when they made the presentation, it may take several years to get to that ultimate of the blue and get everybody in there. It's $500,000, roughly $500,000 a year to be able to do that, which is costly. And so we may not have that money. I know we don't have that money currently right now. We would have to really search and find options of what we would cut out of the budget to be able to find that kind of funding if we would implement that in October. In April, if we wanted to wait and do that in October, we could do that as well. But staff really needs direction from council, and so we need council to kind of discuss and talk about how we want to move, or how you want to move forward, so we can look and see how we can possibly move, or find the funds to move forward with that.
I think I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's my understanding that we've got $57,000. We've got positions that have not been funded, that have not been filled, not been funded, and you and I discussed that. So that $57,000 should not be an issue at this time. And I personally don't want to wait until October to get these people their money, their rightful money. But there's also a couple that need to go up to midpoint, not just the minimum, and that would be our police chief and our dispatchers. Because we never did give them the raise that we promised them and told them that we would give them, the ones coming in to be hired, so that's still an issue. That's my opinion.
Okay, I did review the diagram you had, and that was one section that I saw. I think it was the fire department and the police department.
And the fire department, that's right.
And the chief paid salary. And how many people you said we had in red? 40 people. And they are below the minimum.
Right, correct.
And we definitely, I feel that we want to be able to probably work on everybody's salary, but I think we do need to start somewhere. But I agree with Councilman Borders about the salary of the dispatchers and the police chief.
This is the time to make a comment. I'm trying to get your attention. Can I make a comment?
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I've got the minutes, and this all came about. It's January the 16th, 2020. It stated in there, the cost of the survey was $28,500. Also stated in this, in the minutes, when it was made a motion and it passed, is it was asked if this benefit is wages and it was asked if this would be for benefit and wages, and the response is that this is the salary only. So I assume then this survey is salary only, right? So it doesn't show the benefits of insurance or retirement. Okay. I just wonder why that happened 3 years ago, we're just now getting to this point.
If y'all remember, and again, the reason we went back to Gallagher is as we were starting to lose employees, and there was a big concern with compensation. And so that's when I learned that Gallagher had done a study previously.
I don't have a problem with giving our employees a raise, those that deserve it. And again, when you're using this, you're comparing it to what? Is this comparing it to every city, even in just the state of Texas, without the wage benefit? My question is, what are you comparing it to? The working force or just the city employees?
It's the market, isn't it?
Right.
It's the
So
market.
Gallagher went out, compared it, and they got information from other cities in the state, and then of course market comparisons that they are members of as well.
So my question
Adjusted
is,
those. So the larger cities would be adjusted down. They looked at different
so
cost of living rates and all that, and made adjustments for that.
if an employee starts at the lowest wage, say he's just landscape, bottom of the scale, and you go out and compare that wage that he's making to somebody out on the outside, maybe he's making the same wage, does he get the same benefits? That has to play into it. I'm not against giving a raise, I just think each department head should come to this council, tell us who they are, and who deserves it, those that have been here a long time, and maybe behind. But also point out, the last 7 people that we've hired have started at the midpoint or higher. If you go back to our last employees, go to your city secretary, go to your financial director, go to Public Works, all of those people started it. So my question is, how do you, when you bring somebody in to hire them, and they give you their resume and you see they're not experienced in, say, a dispatcher, they're not experienced, but they want to go to work. So where do you start them at? You start them at the minimum, right? And you
But
get
not
them.
below.
The point I'm trying to make is you don't have a midpoint to go to, say 5 years, whatever we set. You gotta have that carrot out there for them to go to. And I'd also like to point out for the public's information, that this year, this council gave a 3% salary adjustment that cost the taxpayer of the city of Cleveland $121,000. We also gave a salary adjustment, the merit pays of 2%, cost the city taxpayers $80,000. Health insurance increased, we had a problem with inflation this year, everybody did. So we helped them out, and we gave them their insurance about 9%. We gave that with no cost to them. That cost the city taxpayers $93,000. So together, add that up, that's $290,000. That's, what I'm trying to say is this council is seeing our employees, and we want to do right by them. But I just don't think we sit here and give everybody that works in the city up to the midpoint range. Those that are deserving, yes. So I'm just want to bring that up and just say it's more than just reading the chart and saying, you know, we want to give everybody a raise.
But that's what we're saying,
I'm
Fred.
not through yet.
I'm
not
sorry.
through yet. I got
Excuse
one
me.
more.
Okay.
If you want to, go to Google and look up what the average salary is or what the average pay for a city councilman is. I did that. It's kind of complicated. The salary range for the city council pay in Texas, minimum is $27,929 up to $43,212. Highest paid is in Galveston. I'd say that just as a joke because you're comparing. What do we get? 300 a year. So it's not so much that we're different than an employee, I know that. But I just put that in there to show you sometimes when you're comparing, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Now I'm through.
I was addressing what you said about you didn't think that they should necessarily be brought up to the midpoint. But these are the people that Marilyn, she said it also about the firemen, the policemen, the dispatchers. To the midpoint, the rest of the people to the minimum. Of course, we've got to get them above the minimum. That's ridiculous that we have people working below minimum wage.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Ms. McWaters. If you got a fireman or a policeman that's been here 5 or 6 years, and he's below the midpoint, and somebody just started, are you going to raise both of them to the midpoint?
I don't think that's what I'm saying here, Fred.
Okay.
You've got them all lined out here, so you can see which ones are where. So it doesn't apply to all of them. It just applies to the ones that are on. If we're going by this, that's what I'm looking at, because that's what we were given. Those are the ones I'm looking at. Our police chief is terribly underpaid.
I understand that. I just found that out.
You just found that out?
Yes.
I think we all said the same thing. We want to take action on where it's needed.
How often has this council been, I have never been considered what Chief Broussard's salary is. So you're saying that. So now that I find it, yes, that's a little embarrassing to know that.
You do?
Again, I think we're all concerned about the same thing. Getting everybody to the point where we think we are making fair adjustments. And this was a point that was brought up, that we had people that were leaving because of the pay. And we just wanted to go ahead and try to address some of these areas that we can. And we know we won't be able to do it all at once, every department or all of the employees, but we do need to make a start somewhere.
Absolutely.
So we have to figure out what options or what directions we would like for the city to.
What better way to have that discussion other than talking to the department head.
Why do you need to talk to the department head? You
Yeah.
already have your,
We've got it
your
right
layout,
there.
you've got all the documents that you need
All
there.
right, let me ask you a question. How many dispatchers do we have? How
Total
many do we have
eight
hired?
full-time,
April,
8 full-time dispatchers.
We now have 8 full-time employees.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
As of 2 days ago.
That's not on the chart.
We got 7 now.
that's not on the chart.
one's left, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Now, were y'all hired at the same time?
There was a group of them hired about within 2 or 3 days apart.
So you have, I guess, some more part-time?
Yes, sir, there's 2 part-timers.
So that's what I mean, you need to have a discussion about. In fact, I don't know, are they using 3 8-hour shifts and you have 2 on at the same time, so that's 6. So I'm just saying, if you could explain that, I'd appreciate it. And do we need another?
Sure, we can certainly always use another dispatcher to get us into a lot of categories like the ISO and all that. We're behind, that would help with that. That's a big,
I agree, I agree. I think that's the way it should be. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
What I'm saying about the dispatchers, Fred, and that's why we got one and then lost one, because we can't offer a starting salary up to where they're even interested in the job, but they can go to any of these little cities around and make much more.
And again, the city manager brought to us, I think you brought to us salaries of Dayton, Liberty, and we're not trying to compete,
No, we're not.
but we do want to be somewhat in comparison, or close to.
We want to be fair.
Great, and if you looked at the,
I've asked this question from the start. What are we comparing it to? Other cities? Are we comparing it to Dayton? Dayton's tax base is different than ours. They have more money than we do.
That's what I just said.
And what I'm also saying is they also lost a city manager, hired another one, found out there was some bad contracts written. They said engineers and architects. So they wound up in the red and had to lay off 42 people. We don't want to do that either. You haven't read that? All I'm saying is that you approach it in a professional manner and don't just start giving things away. Talk to the department head, ask him who he's got, ask him what he thinks he needs to maintain. If he's got a patrol officer that's just new, and we train him, and then he goes somewhere else for more pay, we've got to do something about that.
I can recall the chief did come, right before us,
Yeah.
stood right here and gave us a report, letting us know what he needed, what he had. So all that's already been discussed. Yes, we need to discuss and decide what we need to do. But we've already got that information from the chief resort.
we're the lowest paid in Liberty County. 1594.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
We're the lowest paid in Liberty County, that includes the Cleveland ISD. Until the part-time work in Cleveland ISD, we're excellent.
and in the packet that you received, you had the information that Chief Broussard provided, I believe back in November or December is when he provided, he's updated it to bring it to us, but it does show where the local departments are next to us. And as a comparison, we look at what the comp study shows, they put the dispatchers in grade 4, which is, the minimum is 1644, and our maximum is 2383, with the midpoint being at 2014. When Chief Broussard came to us, the dispatchers were at 15, or they are at 1594 currently, the lower paid ones. And he was asking for a $3 an hour raise, which would give them to 1884, which is right below the midpoint, which is at 2014.
See, and I thought we had already done this.
We have not.
Okay.
We got that chart, we saw it, and we voted, and then Zagin came out here and voted. The only body we voted for was the supervisor of the people. We didn't talk about any
Okay,
early
but that wasn't how it was supposed to go.
I'm just telling you what went on in
Because
the session.
you were in favor of this, just like we were, because I remember you said it, and so did Richard. Not that he can vote, but he said that, but we,
Check your minutes, when we came out of the executive session, check your minutes.
we lost 2 of our best patrol officers Or they may have been that we got a different title than that, but we lost them just weeks ago. What?
We still got Chief Bruce.
Well, he's our everything officer, yeah. You don't want to hear it.
Okay, so do we,
You can discuss a specific employee in executive session. If they're a higher level employee, you're required by law to post 72 hours notice before discussing that person in executive session. So, can you discuss broad-based approaches in executive session?
So if we
What does
want
that
to,
mean?
if we want to adjust the dispatchers and the chief, the dispatchers, what you said, that we couldn't do the chief unless he was in there?
If they want to adjust the position of dispatchers, it has to be discussed in open session. And of course, the police chief can be 72.
It's listed on here that we can discuss compensation in executive session. Are you saying that we cannot?
Just what I said, if you can discuss a specific position in executive session. If it's a higher level position, it has to be posted, that specific position, 72 hours in advance. If you want to discuss, for example, all dispatchers, that has to be discussed in open session.
You can't discuss the salary if you don't mention, it's not a particular person, but just a position.
That is correct.
Okay? So you're saying you can discuss a position, but not a personnel?
Let me rephrase again. I think I hear you asking, can you discuss a specific person in executive session?
No, I'm saying you can't, I
A
understand that.
position, no, you cannot.
I'm saying go back in executive session and talk about dispatchers in general.
You may not. This is according to the Texas Attorney General and several judicial court decisions throughout the state of Texas, interpreting the Open Meetings Act.
Okay,
So we'll continue it right out here.
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so do the council wants to discuss, what options we want to take? As far as mid or medium or just the dispatchers, for now?
what do you, Mr. Terra, Mr. Lawrence?
Well, honestly, I think we're swatting at flies, and we ought to be poking in the nest.
Okay.
Clarify that for us, please.
I certainly will. I appreciate Chief Broussard, he's done a marvelous job, but I would like to sit down with him in either executive session or at a workshop and write down everything that he can tell me about his department. So then I, along with the rest of council, can come up with a plan as to how to fund him and not overlook the water department or overlook the city operations. This is a very complicated situation. We are basically, again, swatting at flies here. We need to get a plan, not just sporadically give somebody some money to raise him to the minimum. We need to consider all 120 employees in this situation. We need to come up with a plan, either a step plan, some type of a plan that honors those that's been here longer, gives the most money, those that have the best certificates proving that their job is important to them, and work this thing to where the next council or the next 3 or 4 years don't have to worry about this. Because what we're going to be doing today, we're going to have to worry about it next month, because there'll be a different department. There'll be something else that we're going to have to work on. This is the heart of city council, is trying to figure out the money. How much money do we have? How much can we give an employee? How much can we incentivize people? And we also got to figure out how we're going to give them the products or machinery or things that they need to perform their job. And it all boils down to money. And that's what we need to do. We need to call a workshop, go into executive session, spend 24 hours working this, whatever y'all want to consider. But to give somebody a minimum today is just swatting at flies. That's my opinion.
Okay, in my opinion, I totally disagree with you, simply because of the fact, these are some issues that has been brought to us before. And with our city growing in the way that we're growing, it's very crucial that we pay the people that are out there stressfully every day dealing with all types of issues. And we see, and it has been brought to us, the shortage in areas in that police department, and also the dispatchers situation. Our fire department and our police department is very crucial. We're growing so fast in a very rapid pace. There's so many people, and I know they be stressed out. I can imagine. I can see this even in the grocery stores where you have all type of people you're dealing with. So when they're getting these 911 calls and they're overworked or underpaid, and it's a problem. It's a problem. But that is you don't have to comment. It's my opinion. You give your opinion, I'm giving mine. And I totally disagree. And I really feel like we need to start somewhere. No, we don't have the money to up everybody's salary, but you have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. And a workshop is not going to do it. Because if you're talking to the person, they've told you what they needed, it's up to us to find a way to get what is needed. Or to figure out, well, you don't need that. But we have to look at what we have right now. We have to see we're going to be in trouble. If we're going to be in trouble if we don't pay the salary that the people need to keep them here.
But I'm not interested in waiting for the budget to come around. I think we need to be proactive in that manner.
Okay.
I've been a fireman and a policeman. I know about how important these things are. And yes, we are losing people in every department, but I think you need to take a very serious look at the money you're fixing to spend, how you're going to get it, whether you raise taxes. It's a big problem. You got to balance this thing, and it's in our laps. But I appreciate your comment.
Ms. David?
I do feel like we need to be proactive, yes. Being underpaid.
Can you put your mic up a little closer?
Being underpaid is not a good feeling. I'm a young person as well, and it's not a good feeling being underpaid. I do like having a plan, like Mr. Lowry said, because the plan actually makes sense, so we won't have to do this every single meeting. I do like the concept of having a meeting. So what happens if we give salary increase to police? Like what would happen if we did that only?
Well, we don't know. I mean, I don't know, depending on where you want to place them, whether it's, obviously they're above the minimum, or most of, like police is above, they're all
below minimum.
They're all above minimum, but they're below the midpoint. Looks like you have
You're looking at a different list then.
Looks like there's one, now dispatchers are below the minimum. As far as the police officers, those are all, they're above minimum, but they're below midpoint, which is the market. Except for the dispatchers and the police chief, who are below the minimum.
And they're in the red.
They're in the red, correct.
And
Firefighters, going back to them, they are all under except for, it's like one, it's below, or it's above the minimum. Oh, no, never mind. All the firefighters are below the minimum.
And they are also in the red.
They are-
Yeah, they're all in the red.
Let me ask
So
you this question.
basically,
Let me ask you a question, Chief. And on the safer plan,
Yes, sir.
those guys are paid, how's their salary considered with their other firemen?
They're paid the same as any other position.
In other words, when they come in through the safer, it's whatever you're paying.
It's whatever we're paying for, like the one we just applied for that y'all agreed to, I turned in for the pay that they're at currently right now. So say next year's budget, if you give a raise, they're gonna be behind. We'll have to make up the difference because that's not what the grant's gonna pay. It's what we turned in for what they're being paid right now.
Okay. Because I didn't know if that was a different pay scale or whether it's based on whatever we're paying our firemen right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the one that we did receive, is that 3 years? Then
3
we have to
years.
Pick it up?
Mhm.
Is that ending this year?
That's ending this year. We're in the last year now.
Now, what is the total of that package per year?
The one we did, the one that we're in now that we're about to finish up was 2.3 million.
2 point, well, what are we gonna have to pay for, put those people on our payroll starting this next year, when that's it?
Divided by 3 years, so that's 700 and something, almost $800,000 a year.
Okay, and we've also did another safety grant, which hopefully we get
Mhm.
at the end of that period, we're gonna look at it again. So you're looking at some increases in these budgets are there. And you gotta look at it, and what's revenue and what's expenditures. You can't spend more than get in.
But we're getting more in.
We
We're
will.
not, well, no, but you have to keep in mind that there will be more money and more revenue coming in. That's just common sense with all the additions that are coming to our town.
I'm not arguing that point, I agree. You know how much we got from last year for this year? Just on new homes alone, $500,000. So that's good. I get that. If we get BNSF, when they get up and running, hopefully our tax base will be similar to some of these other cities.
It will be.
But until we get it, you can't spend it.
But we can bring them to the minimum. $57,000.
Half of it would have been paid for what you paid for this survey.
the 50
I agree 100% with that.
the 57 is for bringing everybody up to the minimum.
For half a
That's
year,
not the
for
ones
half a
in
year.
red, to bring them up to,
Right.
above the minimum.
And those people on the right column in blue are overmaxed, are we gonna cut their salary?
That's not what we're discussing right now.
So looking at this diagram, it's indicating that we have a large group of people that are in the red, they are below the minimum. So would it be fair to raise them up to the mid?
Yeah.
At least the minimum.
At least to the minimum?
The minimum, if they've been here a long time, maybe maximum, but not automatically go to the minimum, to the middle.
But they are below, these 40-some, 40 plus,
They are
they are below.
Correct.
I never worked for a city. Every job I ever had, what was offered, what I agreed to, that's what I made. And if I didn't make what I wanted to in a year or two more, I had two choices. Live with that or go to another place. Now, I know we don't want to do that here, but you can't. That's why you gotta talk to department heads and find out what their different people, what their experiences are, and that's how you base the pay. You can't pay everybody the same thing.
But that's not your job to do that. They hire the people to do the job. But yet still, you working there, you don't intend to stay at that same salary, you want to get some type of,
Ms. Clay, if we raise the salary to everybody to the minimum, will that fix my street, the potholes in my street? It's been there for 8 months.
that's another subject.
So it's a concern of mine. We need equipment to do those streets. And yet we didn't have that $300,000 when we started this budget this year.
So what would the cost be to raise the employees in the red? What would be the cost to raise all of those people to the red?
So for the rest of this fiscal year, if we were to make an adjustment in April, the mid-year adjustment, to bring everybody that's in the red that is below the current minimum to at least two minimum is about $57,000 is what that cost would be. And that would be something that we could do now to a third of our employees to at least get them paid and compensated within the range that they need to be. Ultimately, I think the plan would be to try to get to the blue or the option 3, which is to get everybody within the pay grade where they need to be. So if they've been here for less than 5 years, they should be below the midpoint. They've been here for more than 5 years, they should be midpoint or above. And so that would be what option 3 is, that blue column. And that'd be the ultimate goal, to get everybody where they need to be. But I think right now, my biggest concern is that I've got 40 employees, a third of our staff that are not getting paid what the minimum is for that position, which means they can go to another city, and that's why we're losing employees, because they can go to other cities or other area jobs and make as much money or more money than what they're making here. And so if we can at least get that adjustment to where they're being compensated what anybody else doing that position is going to be compensated for, I think that's great. And then based on their years of experience, based on their, education and everything else, then you could concede within that pay grade. But that's that blue area that we can work towards. And it may take a year, it may take 2 years, because that's a large amount. That's roughly $500,000 a year. That's a large dollar amount to go towards. And so that's something we'll need to plan for. I do think that we could probably come up with and find, and I've talked with Pam, we think we can find the $57,000 somewhere within our budget with all the savings that we can do and working with department heads to be able to get everybody to that minimum. You start adding above that, then we don't know what that dollar, we'll have to figure out what that dollar amount is. So if we want to move something else, we'll have to figure out what that dollar is. We'll have to look and see what that is. Now, if the direction is we want to be at least, right now, first step, right now, starting in April, we want to get everybody to the minimum, then we can get together, working with our department heads, and, to figure out where's this $57,000 coming from, and then bring that back to you for approval so we can implement it.
So you're saying you don't have it, but you're going to try to get it?
They do it.
Yeah, we know we got to operate within our budget. Right now, we've got a budget dollar amount, and we've got to find that funding.
We've had people leave jobs, and before they're hired, that salary we gain. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's what Scott was talking about, I believe. We can find that.
Yes.
Now, again, we think we can do that. We've not pulled the numbers because we're waiting for direction on what council wants to do, but
Should we wait?
57,000.
No,
Should
we
we wait
should
for
not
this to
wait.
find the money?
Well, we need direction. If that's what y'all want to
We've got the
do,
money.
if you want to do that,
Where's it coming from, Carol?
And they just said they can find,
Where's
just
the-
exactly what you said, Fred, for the positions that have not been filled, that money's in there,
Where is it?
in the budget.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't have it.
I got it right here. Here's the budget.
and I don't know that all 57,000 will be just out of salary savings, but
Now, go in there and tell me where you find that money. I know it's in there, but you can't just say it's there.
No, but Pam and Scott can, Fred. I don't have to say where it is. They're the ones that we've hired to tell us that. That's not my job to go in there and literally find the money.
Scott, when do
I
we
trust
open the
them.
budget? When do we open the budget? When do we set it?
October 1st. Oh, when do we start
Yeah.
planning for it?
Yeah.
Probably May.
May?
Because I think what we're looking at May is starting to work with the department heads, start getting those requests in. And so, yeah, that's coming up the next couple of months, but
Right.
But Scott, if we raise these people, the 40, what's that gonna, where are we with the dispatchers? Where are we with this and what the chief asked us for 2 months ago,
for the
whenever it was?
dispatchers, it would increase their salaries.
Will it get them to this 1894?
No.
No.
It would get them to 1644.
And can we get
They're
them?
at, the dispatchers are at $15.94. So that would get them a 50-cent an hour raise
Okay.
right now.
Can we
They've
get
been
them
here
up
for
to,
3 months and haven't get them a raise. 50
can we
cent
get
raise.
them up to the $18.94? That's my
That's like a
question.
$3 raise.
We agreed on that, but we didn't come out and make the motion, I guess.
I asked the question earlier, the money that we paid first this year, that 297,000, is that in the auditor's report, updated to that?
Yeah, so the 3% and 2% the council gave to the staff in October, that was reflected in this.
They did
this
update
study.
it to this.
Which, if you remember when Gallagher presented it, he said we are better off today than we were 2 years ago because of y'all making those kind of
That's
adjustments,
right.
that we're not as far behind as we were. So by doing those adjustments, we are better off, but we're still, you got 40 positions that are below below minimum, still have 96 or 80% of our employees that are below the market. Which, again, I think some of your employees should be below the market. Those that have been in that position for less than 5 years should be less than the market. Now, the ones that have been here for 15 years obviously should be higher into the pay grade. Again, but that's kind of where your blue column, that option 3 falls in. But I think
But we're not
I think
talking
it's
about that
crucial
right now.
that we at least get our employees making the
I think
minimum of what they need
It's
to.
very crucial, and we
And I
need,
think we can definitely find the $57,000 to do that. I've talked with the department heads in our department head meeting several times, and we all feel confident and are willing to make sure we can find that money, even if we have to cut some stuff that we wanted this year in our budget to be able to make that happen, so that we can give our employees the fair compensation that they need.
I would recommend if we can get, this is 57,000, but you said that won't raise the dispatchers up to but
Get them up to
$16.
16.
but we can make that motion to do the minimum plus get the dispatchers up to this. We can do that.
I do caution.
Could we ask Chief Broussard to comment on that?
This paper came from him.
There had been a recommendation of maybe the $3 more an hour, which would probably consider the lower end of our staff right now would probably roughly around $3,000 or $4,000 more a year is what it's going to compensate out to for those 5 or 6 that are below the 1584. So that's kind of, honestly speaking, but we got to look at now, we'll be 6 months into the budget, so we'll be only paying out 6 months of the year for whatever you want to bring in. If you were to consider 16.4, would be reasonable. But we were talking about the 1894 would put us the second highest in the county below the sheriff's office, and that's what we were seeking. Retention is very important, and especially in that dispatch position. You can get 10 of them in there, but if they're not trained, you're just spinning the wheels. You gotta have people there with them to hold their hands to make sure it gets done and they get properly trained, which can take a while sometimes. If you only got 2 or 3 that are seasoned or trained, you can have as many as you want. I say apprentice or low end or first hires, but it takes them a while to catch on to that job because you have people's lives in your hand.
Raising your dispatchers, does that create any conflict with the rest of your department?
Well, you can always see that throughout the city. Each department,
Yeah.
one department gets a little bit of favor, then everybody else is going to win in favor. So patrol officers,
But is that going to be a problem?
everybody may. But I think a lot of them are really right now at this point in time, crying with those dispatchers, begging that they get some help because their lives are in their hand. When you got rookies in there behind the console, stuttering sometimes, slowly responding, it's difficult. So I think a lot of the officers within the department can understand, male and female, that those
Okay.
dispatchers are really crying. They work a lot of hours, only 8 of them, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, weekend shift work, which we don't have a big shift in checker like a lot of
But
places.
having those 8 now, they're not having to work past their regular shift, is that right?
They are. They're having to bring along those rookies that are there now.
But Chief,
So sometimes it's 3 people on instead of 2 people.
raising them to the 1894, that gets us the people that are qualified and that
You
do
will
have
get
the
better
certificate.
applicants. I can
Yes.
almost assure you, you will get better applicants than what you get now.
And that's what he's saying, that's what we
That's
need.
what I'm saying. You know, I have a couple of people from the sheriff's office that live in Spindora work, but they drive to Liberty, that's already, it's been coming, if y'all pay better, I'd come to Cleveland. Two of my part-timers, one's been with us 17 years throughout our part-time, jumping to the ISD, to back part-time with us. And she said, if y'all pay more, I'll be over here. She's just waiting part-time now.
Well, that brings up a concern of mine. We have people that are part-time, get no benefits.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's right.
Right. It's kind of like Austin's working extra jobs, you know.
It's not right.
No, it's not right. But we have maintained that one part-timer that's been with us for 17 years. She works most of the weekends. Our full-time people kind of get a little bit of a break, those that help on the third shift.
So the person has got experience, is doing the training.
Yes,
They're
sir.
making how much an hour right now?
Would you say that?
The dispatcher that is experienced, she's training a new person.
There's 3 of them right now.
Okay, what is their salary right now?
Ranging from the last one y'all gave.
I lost your sheet, I don't have.
Yes, sir. The last dispatch supervisor, I think she got a pretty significant raise there. She's been with us going on 7 years. And then the one under that came in with a lot of experience. I think she may be in the $18 an hour range.
Okay, and the person she's training is making what?
$15.84.
Okay, so there is the difference there. But if you're gonna raise both of them $3 an hour.
I would like to see a
That's-
couple raise.
That's what I'm asking.
Exactly.
The one making 15 to raise it to $3, 18, she could be making what her supervisor is, or whoever's training her. And I don't, that needs to be an adjustment there.
I think worldwide, Texas-wide, she would be well worth it. I do have a T-code study that's done statewide. I need to share with you guys, just came out in November 2022 is what it's dated, but it was just came out from the state about around the state of Texas, a lot of salaries from all sides of departments. That is pretty significant when you look at it. It's pretty interesting. Lost one lives in PD 2 days ago. She'll be making $3 more an hour starting. She's got some license and she'll probably get some stipends on that.
You said she went to Livingston.
Yes, sir.
If Livingston raises their rates up there, does that mean we're gonna have to raise theirs again here?
Everybody right now, Mr. Terrell, is fighting with people, stealing everybody's people.
It's an arm
And
race.
sometimes a lot less work.
It's an arm race.
School districts or a lot less
It's
work.
an arm race. And law enforcement, dispatch is an arm race.
Gosh.
And before we wouldn't steal other people's people, today they'll steal your people. The sheriff will tell you, I'll steal your people if I can. We're that desperate for law enforcement in those professions right now. It's dog eat dog.
We've got
What is it, LAPD just had a big term where they're asking all the senior people that retired to come back, but it's worldwide. Law
Yes,
enforcement, it's not a lot of young people back in school anymore, they're not getting into law enforcement. So we've been to each academy, last week was at U of H downtown trying to recruit. So we're recruiting hard, everybody else is too, I promise you. There's not a lot of people getting into law enforcement. It's worldwide, I got all the articles you want to read. It's a fight right now for law enforcement. So if you can keep them and retain them, I pay them.
And if I may say something,
You may.
Your Honor?
You may.
It's something to look at for council down the road, and I've spoken to some of the council members. It would be, for a long-term plan, would be to come up with a step plan. Liberty County Sheriff's Department has implemented, their commissioners got together and they implemented a step plan. So if you're here from 5 years, you get this much bonus. 10 years, and that's where you start separating the classes. So like you said, if you have a dispatcher that's 6 years, she'll be always making more than the person that's been here 3 years. And it gives them incentive to stay with the city. I mean, I've been here 8 years. Shoot, 2 more years, I'll be getting an extra $7,000. The Sheriff's Department and the Commissioners of Liberty County took the lead on it. I give them credit for that, and it's for employee retention at the Sheriff's
I
Department.
understand the step raise, the bonus thing is a very hard thing to do.
Well, it would be step, it would be the step, that they have a step, it's set pay scale. For every 5 years, they get $3,500. So if you've been here 5 years, you get $3,500 on top of your pay. 10 years, 35, and I think it maxes out at
I
$17,000.
want to use the term on the outside. You make a bonus if the company you work for is profitable. In other words, if they make money at the end and they say a bonus, and you set a plan, if you meet it, you get your bonus.
Well, bonus is
The city-
my mistake, it was not a bonus, it's a step. They have steps, and
I can
we've
understand.
always wanted that, and we've never gotten to that. And that's probably, that should be a citywide thing to look at eventually, so it gives your loyal employees incentive to stay, and it gives them goals to reach. Now, I've been here 9 years, if I can stay another year,
I'm gonna be at this point, and then if you hire another person in that position, there's a separation. Because I've been in the situation where I'm a new detective and I'm making the same amount as a 15-year detective, and that's not right. I'm bumbling through the investigation, and this guy can work it with a blindfold on, but yet I'm making what he's making, and that's something I've seen in the city of Cleveland has always been behind the curve. We need to have a set scale for the whole city, or start with departments, or however that needs. I know it costs money, and you've got to look at the overall budget, but that's a step in the right direction as implementing a step like the sheriff's department did, and the commissioners in Liberty County. I think they signed off it in 2020, 2021, and man, all those guys that were looking for jobs were like, wait a minute, I'm making, it kept their employees that were senior around. You know, Chief Broussard said he's making this much money. And I will say this, Chief Broussard leaves tomorrow, guess what? We're gonna hire a new chief to come in here, and we're gonna pay him what Chief Broussard's making. That's not fair. This man knows the city like the back of his hand. He knows everybody, and everybody loves him. It's not fair. He's got the vested interest in Cleveland, and he loves Cleveland. But if you have that step increase, now Chief Broussard, who's been here 38 years, has got the step pay. So if a new chief comes in making what he makes, which would be, say, a baseline, let's just throw out $80,000. I know he makes more or less, whatever, say $80,000. The new chief would come in making $80,000, but he wouldn't have the step raise. Chief would have the step raise. You're paying him for his years of service. And that's something the city, I think, in my opinion, which I'm not the smartest person in the room at all, but I've always seen that we've lacked on that, where a new guy or a new dispatcher will be coming in making what the lady that's been here 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they kind of like, you know, that's not, I've been there, a lot of these employees can say the same thing, where we've been there like, man, I've been here 8 years and he's making what I'm making. I really think down the road, something that we can look at a long-term goal is come up with a step plan for the city and the employees, and then you always got a separation and experience. That's
I
just
think
my,
that's what Scott's trying to do with Gallagher, 19 steps.
Yes.
Well, the 19 is the pay grade.
Great,
The pay
yes.
grade. Now, the way it's set up is there is 45%. When you look at that grade, each grade, there's a 45% difference between the minimum and the maximum, which easily turns into, if you give like 15 3% steps. So you can easily go in there and say every 3%, so there's 15 steps within each of those grades. Now, that's not in there, but it's set up so that you can easily say, okay, we're going to adopt 15 steps for each grade, and so each of those steps would be 3%, which then would be the 45% to get you. And so if you came in as a veteran police officer or public works employee, and you've got 5 years of experience, then you could place them in step 5 coming in. If you're 1 year, you go to 1. You know, but it also allows for those that have got 15 years to get, you know, closer to that maximum as well. And so we have worked with Gallagher. They are supposed to be presenting us and giving us a formula that we can use for every position, so that when a new employee comes in, you can put them within, based on their years of experience and their education that they have, put them in the right place within that pay grade, and then they would then start from there and moving forward in the grade.
Scott, when will we get our hands on that? Because that's what I'm talking about, is a plan, so we don't just hire haphazardly individuals that come in. So when will we see this?
Well, the formula that they're going to give us is just the formula that would allow us to be able to place new employees coming in. The current putting employees where they need to be currently, and we have current employees, is that blue option 3. So we've got those numbers.
Right.
And then if we want to implement a step plan, it's just a matter of saying, yes, we want to implement and adopt a 15-step plan with 3% per step, or we can adjust that.
Right.
You know, it could be 2% and it'd be, I don't know, it doesn't work out right, but 20. You know, 20 steps at 2% gets you 40. It doesn't quite work out exactly, but you could put that in there and we can implement that real easy. We could say October 1st, we're adopting the step plan. We're going to give everybody a step, so wherever they're at, everybody's going to get that 3%, that step to the next step.
Right.
That'd be something we could do, but again, that goes back to the planning and adopting that in the budget, because that does cost. So Getting everybody to a minimum is one option. Getting everybody to option 3, which places them within the scale where they need to be placed, is another option, and that costs money, but then also implementing a step plan to where every year, if it's 3%, every year, every employee will receive a 3% increase. Now, one of the things that I've done recently in another city is we had a step plan. It was 3%. We changed it while I was there from a 3% to a 2% and then allowed for a 1% merit based on their work performance. And so that 1% could be adjusted every year, so the council could say, we want to give everybody the step, but we also, instead of a 1% merit, we want to give a 2% or a 3% merit this year as well. So that's something that we could look into here, is to be able to, because there is a difference. This comp study is getting everybody into the position where they need to be. There's a whole nother discussion on merit when you give people and place people based on their work performance. That's a totally different discussion, but all of it is pay, all of it is compensation, and all of it costs money.
Right.
You know, and so that's all needs to be considered, and so.
Well, a better way to spend your money.
Well, I think Carolyn's right. We do need to move forward on this. I'm for this. It feels like a Band-Aid approach, which is fine. As long as we come back, and if we do these type of raises, like in the third year, they're the third option that we have. Even if we started at 1%, put it in there that it's got to go to 2 within 2 years, we got to go to 3 within 2 years. We're building the program, staying within the plan. The plan is what we got to have.
So I do hear what you're saying about the plan, but you said you also think that we need to go ahead and move forward. Forward with what as of right now?
Yeah, I'm not against any of this. It's just, I don't want to get up from this table and have to come back again and say we don't have a plan. We don't know how to deal with public works. We don't know how to deal with the fire department, the police department. We didn't put anything in action. We want to put that in action. I want to put the plan in action. So the approach of fixing the minimum is not a problem today. If he can find the money, and that's an if. Can't find the money, we're in trouble. So, if you can find the money, great. But this council needs to come up with this plan as to what's going to go forward. Because when some of us leave and new people come on, they don't know about the plan. They don't know how to follow this. They don't know whether it's going to work or not. I want to make sure that it works. Not looking to reinvent the wheel. Let's find a wheel that works and let's use it. Sorry for taking so long.
I agree with you, Mr. Lowry. Basically, I'm glad that you talked about the step plan, because I do agree with that. I have a question. When two people come to work, they both started the same, education, experience, all the same. One's a better employee than the other. How do you ever separate those? Do you process them?
That's the merit. So last year, I think it was a 3% COLA and 2% merit.
2%.
And so that 2%, if they didn't get that 2% because of their performance, then the person that got the 2% because they were a higher performer is able to move up.
What percentage of our 102 employees got the full 2%?
I do not have that information, but we can get that.
I think it's pretty high.
I would think so.
Get this thing carried a little further. I'm gonna make a motion that we bring everybody up to that minimum grade in approximate range of $57,000. And I have a question for attorney real quick. In your budget, you have things that are designated for everything. So to move money around, how do you do that? Because I brought things up before and they said, well, you can't do that because it's in the budget this way.
Budget amendment.
Budget amendment?
You can do a budget amendment within your budget. Another thing that we could do is, because you can't move personnel to other salaries, but you can reserve a line item that you have budgeted and say, we're not going to spend X amount of dollars, we're going to keep that, and we're going to use that for personnel, because that way your cost But then eventually you'll have to do an amendment at the end of the budget. But you could transfer, we could put a hole basically on that, saying, we're not gonna spend this $3,000 in this line item right now, we're gonna keep that.
So you with Pam are gonna find a way to find 57 round.
It's gonna take all
Then
the
it's gonna-
departments.
There's gonna come back to council to be voted
Correct.
on. Can that be done by this Tuesday, coming up, regular council meeting?
We can try.
Fred, can I ask you something? Will you add to your motion the $3 increase for the dispatchers?
Is that part of the 57?
No, that is not part
That
of
would
it.
be an addition.
Just procedurally, just letting you know, you need a motion and a second. And
Right,
it
we
sounds
have
like
a
maybe if
second.
you want to make a motion to amend that motion and you get a second, that's a possible thing that you can do. It's up to you.
So we need a second on Fred's motion.
Correct.
I second that.
And then if you, Councilmember McMorris, would like to make a motion to amend that motion.
For the $3.
Right now?
Yes, if you'd like, yeah.
Okay, I would like to amend that motion to add the $3 increase to the dispatchers. Let me ask you this question too. There's one on here on the minimum that maybe shouldn't be raised. Can I do that or not?
You can put whatever you'd like in your motion, just for clarity, when you say $3, you mean $3 an hour, right?
Yeah,
Just
$3
so-
an hour for the dispatchers, but this I'm talking about a different employee that maybe should be left where they are right now. Can I put that in my motion?
Yes, you may say I make a
And I would also like to put in the motion to leave the Development Services Director where he is.
Do we have to vote on Fred's motion first, then hers?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
But so here's what I'm hearing as a motion, because then you'll need a second. If I'm hearing it
Right.
is you want to make a motion to amend Councilmember Terrell's by raising the dispatchers by $3 an hour, with the exception of one employee, and you'll have to name them, so we know for the record.
I named the position. Do I need to
Okay,
name
you
the
can name
name?
the specific position if that's the only person in that position.
It is.
I think you get in trouble doing that.
Well, it's a new employee and he doesn't have all his certificates and licenses that he needs, and I think till he can get that, then I think he's good where he is. That's just
So,
me.
You want a motion to Councilmember Terrell's motion to amend by increasing the dispatcher, for all dispatchers by $3 an hour, except for newly hired dispatchers of, what, 6 months or less, until they
No,
have
he's
the
not.
required certifications? I'm
This
trying-
is
I'm
two
trying to
different, this
articulate
is two different things I'm
some
saying.
criteria. Oh, okay.
So
No,
maybe we
this
should,
other
maybe
employee
we
is
should
not a
include that.
dispatcher.
Do
Maybe,
the dispatches first,
yes,
and then do the other part.
yes, I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, all the, okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that other position? What's
It is
title?
the Development Services position,
Director position. That's the
Director
biggest
position.
issue.
and that, I do have the right position, is that right?
That's the Director of Development Services. And that was, he does have all the required certifications to be a building official. There's others that he can still get.
But how about inspecting? I think there's some of these that he does not have, am I right, wrong or right?
There's others that he can, and Adam,
Because we're still using the contractors.
well, that's because of workload.
No, because of his license.
Correct.
No,
I mean-
okay.
Safe Built is our third party that, because,
Yeah.
I mean, it takes, they're out there all day, every day doing that, so.
Safe Built is?
Safe Built, and they do person, go to address your license.
But we're paying, we're gonna pay them like $80,000 this year.
I could speak at length about the savings at this point that the city is benefiting from with Safe Build. We're actually Tuesday going to be giving an amendment to the contract that was a renegotiation that I obtained with Safe Build to reduce our costs.
I'm not talking about that, Adam, at all. I'm not
Right.
talking, I don't care about
As
that.
far as
And I
inspection-
know that's happening.
Your
but
certifications.
My question is,
What's
and the
required?
certifications, but my question is, why do we need them at all? If you have all the certifications and all the licenses,
I think,
that's what I can't understand.
I think I would briefly just state the business model of building code administration that's being utilized now versus what was previously being performed under the previous contract, which was inspection service and only plan review, not a building official being contracted. So that's significant, and the savings are significant. My salary
I realize
versus
that.
what that person was receiving as a benefit of service. And I don't know if you want me to make that statement, but it's pretty clear it was significant amount of money being earned over a 3-year period
Well,
from the research that I did.
I get all
So it's
that too, but tell me about your license and your certifications, and I still can't separate the two. I still don't know why you're not able to do more of the work than these people come in.
I do perform inspections, but I'm not, at this point, I'm creating the administrative side of the building department function. The scope of the work and the model that we need to follow is different from what the city was performing prior to me getting here. And it's a significant savings.
But what certification and license do you have?
I'm a state licensed plumbing inspector with the state of Texas, which so I can, and the previous person that was servicing the city was not a licensed plumbing inspector. I have my certifications for residential construction with ICC. I'm able to perform any and all related inspections in construction. The International Code Council does not state that you are required to be certified as a master code professional in all areas of construction. You need to have the experience and the knowledge and the ability to reference the material and resource that in the code book, which is, I'm capable of doing that. I will not stand here and say that I am a master code professional and I can rattle off any question,
Right.
but I can find you the answer, that's for sure. That's the ability of a building official as you practice yourself. So when I first started the position, I was in the field, I was making inspections, but it was clear in the first month of, at the state of the department that it was in, which they're really, with my experience in building code activities and departments since 1996, I didn't have the impression that there was really any order to the process of a standard practice in the department. So we are creating those standard practices, and it's getting persons' attentions in the field, the contractors, the engineers, the architects, and it's positive, the direction that we're going at this point. There's improvements being made. I can give you an example, Grand Oaks, when I came in, it's changing, it's improving, and I just drove through there yesterday, making inspections to see and identify if those conditions are better as far as the practices that are being followed in the standard of construction in a subdivision. And they are. They've cleaned up multiple areas, and I don't want to go through all the details, but I've been working hand in hand closely with all the professionals to get Cleveland in a better state of building code administration practices.
You work closely with the contractors
Yes,
and make
most
sure they're
definitely.
doing what they're supposed to do. I know there's some not so honest ones out there, but.
And there's some that are not happy with some of the requirements that they're being expected to follow,
But they have to.
since I walked in the door. And that education is being delivered in a fair manner and professionally. I'm not coming in here just swinging, the axe. It's being presented to them with time to comply and adjust to the new standard that's being followed.
We need that.
Yeah.
I
So
agree. Okay.
as far as my ability to do inspections, yes, I can inspect anything and everything in the field,
Perfect.
unless it's some criteria like I'm not qualified to sign off on, and I mind my
So
P's
the,
and Q's.
the contractors come in strictly for the overload, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the demand of the inspections
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
have that expectation of one person to perform all of those tasks is really, in my opinion, unrealistic. And I don't want to say, I don't know how that was even being achieved at that level by one person. It's, that's pretty tough thing to accomplish. I know it's an impossibility for me to do all the plan review, all of the phone calls, all of the interest that's coming into this city for investors and developers that want to spend money here, and there's a lot of interest.
There is.
And I respond very quickly to anybody and everybody. That in itself is a job.
So you're out in the field most of the time?
I'm very responsive and reactive, and I report to Scott daily on issues and matters that are relevant to the betterment of the community, for the city of Cleveland, you know, for positive growth and compliance with the code. And I've gotten, like I said, some attention, and I don't believe you've received too much negative feedback from the community or customers saying, hey, he's asking us to do things, because there's a way to go about communicating that higher standard without hopefully upsetting persons. I mean, Mary Ann and I just had this conversation about a particular case with the manufactured home project, and
Right, yeah.
he's upset that he's got to comply with concrete runners being installed, but he was just at my office today. Whether or not he'll come to Public Speaks and express his concerns, but the standards are adopted, and I educated him to why he needs to follow those, and he's willingly seems to be like he's going to comply, like he's going to understand that yes, it's a little more money he's investing in his park, but he understands that requirement. And that's just, again, an education of providing the right customer service, how you deliver that message. So that is a skill set that is acquired over a long period of time, Carolyn, I can tell you. It's not easily achieved.
No, I
How
know
to
there's lots of.
deliver to somebody and tell them no in a yes fashion.
That's it. All
It's,
right, well, I appreciate you
okay.
clearing
Okay.
that up for me.
I think we had a motion on the floor. Mr. Terra made a motion. So can you repeat your motion, please, Mr. Terra?
Make a motion that that we approve the city manager to find a way to get the $57,000 to bring everybody up to a minimum standard. I
And
think
we,
that's pretty much it, and then Mr. Lowry second.
okay, and we had a second by Councilman Lowry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other discussions? All in favor?
Did you want to make your motion to, then we had a motion to amend from Councilwoman McDowell.
Okay, so
Did you need,
we maybe
we didn't get a
amendment
second,
before
so
we
you
make
can
it.
do that if you'd like.
You
Okay,
want to do it at the same time?
Or
The
you can make
motion?
a separate motion, I'm just trying to
Okay.
figure out where we're at
Okay.
procedurally.
So I need a set, I'll make the motion to bring everyone up to the minimum, and in addition, add the $3 increase to the dispatchers.
Is there a second?
You want to eliminate some?
That's all of my motion.
I second the motion.
okay,
And so
all in favor?
first you have to vote on the amendment, it's just the rules.
Mine?
Yes, that's how it works procedurally.
Okay.
Okay, the council vote on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with the amendment.
Every dispatcher, including the supervisor, or just the dispatcher?
Part-time,
Part-time also. Is that what you want, Chief?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I would say yes. Yes,
Yes.
to the supervisor, yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Mhm. Do we need to, well, Fred's already said to find the money, so when we find the money, can we make this happen? And we don't have
If
to
he's-
wait?
If he's got it solved, the next council meeting next Tuesday, we can vote on
Because it's
it.
got
The agenda,
Okay.
when does the agenda have to go out? Tomorrow?
And we've got it on the agenda for next week to be able to discuss, but if we've got information.
Okay.
And then you would need to now vote on the original motion.
Per the attorney, we need to now vote on the original
Okay.
motion. Councilor Terrell? Okay, the motion passes.
Unanimous.
Now, for future, and this is for current. For future, are we looking at, just from my understanding, are we looking at trying to go to option 3 in the future, as well as including a step plan?
Correct.
Yes.
That's what we want to look at for the budget.
Yes.
Is to implement a step plan
Yes,
and to get everybody to option 3.
correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure you get that
So
correct.
there's a consensus for the city manager to look into ultimately implementation of what he's called option 3. Okay.
Can you do that by next Tuesday?
And we got the budget process to do that.
You can start on it.
Okay, that's a good start anyway. Okay, so now we're,
It was another thing I wanted to discuss. There's not.
Was that?
Scott,
Do you want to discuss
If
with the
we wanted to
salary,
take something.
what position?
city secretary,
Okay, that's got to be posted 72 hours in advance.
oh, because it's specific, okay. All right.
Next Tuesday.
We can put it on next Tuesday. All right, sorry.
okay, any other discussions?
I do have one thing. For the next Tuesday, I don't want to stress the people out trying to get the step plan for next Tuesday. That's a lot of work for y'all.
They can't do it that way. I think he was joking, maybe.
Okay. Do we have any discussion?
It was if we needed to go back on this one.
Okay. So if we don't have any discussions for executive session,
Make a
we get a
motion
motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn. Second.
They let out of here.
I need to.
His daughter. Where is she? Oh, she